You're listening to 360 Digital, a podcast brought to you by Mopinion's all-in-one user feedback software. This podcast series tackles a number of different topics under the digital umbrella, from best practices in UX and CRO to the latest trends and innovations in customer experience and digital marketing. This is 360 Digital. Hi everyone, my name is Erin Gilliam and welcome to yet another episode of 360 Digital. Last month, we sat down with product marketer at Meister to discuss how businesses can achieve growth with the right product marketing approach. During this episode, our guest, Michelle Matus, talked about the daily challenges of product marketers and what really goes into developing a product strategy. So if you haven't yet tuned in, be sure to do so and let us know what you think. This month, however, we're switching gears and focusing on another field of digital. In today's episode, we will be talking about conversion rate optimization, or CRO. Now, for those of you who are new to CRO, let me break it down for you really quick. CRO is the practice of increasing the percentage of users who perform a desired action on a website, whether that's, purchasing, signing up for a service, or even something so simple as filling out a form. However, somewhere along the line, this process has really become a balancing act. In fact, most CRO specialists are up to their necks in a massive ecosystem of digital tools that aid in everything from website analysis and mouse tracking to technical analysis and user testing. But the fact of the matter is, many of these specialists are actually missing out on an important factor. What about how your users feel? Why are they behaving in a certain way? Why are they dropping off in certain online funnels? To fully understand this hard data, so the data captured from the tools I've just mentioned, you're going to need soft data to complement it. And therefore, the burning question is, how can you humanize your CRO efforts with soft data? In this episode, we will dive deeper into this topic with the help of a CRO expert in the e-commerce industry. With 7 years of experience as a web consultant in both insurance and publishing, a background in user experience, and of course an in-depth understanding of CRO, thanks to his work on many projects such as Vondervalk.nl and Ziggo, today's guest speaker is currently CRO specialist at Beerwolf, a fast-growing online craft beer shop. So, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to today's special guest, Tim Tyson.
Yes, hi.
Hey, Tim, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you so much.
Hey, well, thanks for taking the time out to chat with us today. Maybe we can kick things off by you telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background as a CRO specialist.
Yeah, of course. Hi, guys. I'm Tim. I'm a CRO specialist, and I work at the UX team at Beerwolf. Together with some great product designers and journey experts and researchers, we are responsible for creating insights into the behavior of users and guiding other teams within Beerwolf to set up experiments and make sure that their experiments are well executed.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Before we get started, we always like to break the ice a little bit with our guests. So we have a quick question for you. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, sure.
Icebreaker.
So you might have seen this one coming, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Seeing as how you work at Beerwolf, you must be a beer lover to some extent, I assume. So my question for you is, what is your all-time favorite beer?
Yeah, my all-time favorite beer. The most funny thing is that that also was one of the questions during my interview when I joined Beerwolf. So, but what I said is it really depends on the moment because, of course, you can really love double beer, or you can really love beers like Duvel, for instance, what I do. But if it's a really hot summer, I would also like a blonde beer. So that it really depends on the moment.
Okay, so you have different beer moods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Nice. A good answer. All right. Well, now that we know that, we're going to go ahead and get started here. You've already given us a quick introduction about your background as a CRO specialist. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the day-to-day challenges that you face in your role.
Yeah. So as a CRO specialist, there are actually two big challenges. One of them is giving structure into the optimization. So we need to prioritize ideas and experiments based on the potential and how much proof there is that an experiment can have a great impact. But we also need to consider the ease and the strategy and the mission of the company itself. So it's very important to have contact with your stakeholders and make sure that all the ideas and experiments optimize the website for the strategy and mission of the company. So actually, that's one. And the second one is even more challenging, in my opinion, because most of the companies have great tools. They have tons of data and they have the right connection, but the right connection between teams within the company is often missing. So you have online specialists, and they are most of the time are split in separate teams, for instance, acquisition or retention. But the focus on is they actually focus on the same user. So it's quite yeah un, clear what research has been done before. And their backlog is still separate from the other team, and so is their user research.
Mm-hmm. And how do you bring those two teams then together? So how do you overcome that kind of a challenge? And are there certain tools that you guys use to manage those activities?
Yeah, so yeah, the only way to overcome those challenges actually is to think about the journeys within your own company. So, of course, you have different users, you have different teams. One example is you have an acquisition team that decides to do user interviews, validate a new proposition, and the results are reported within the team and to the PO, and eventually was not effective and the proposition is killed. But you have another team, that's retention team, that wonders how they can keep their users hooked with a proposition specifically for their users. And they start user research with 80% of the same questions. So that's something you want to prevent. And what you have to think about is what topics within my team are also relevant for other teams or maybe only specialists. And what channels do I use within the company to raise awareness of certain topics that's going on, so other teams and other people can also be aware of those topics and researches you're doing.
And can you give some examples of some of the other teams that are involved in this process?
Yeah, so most of the time you have teams like branding, or you have content teams. You have, of course, the marketing department, and when they have questions, they start research themselves. But it's an example, of course, and the biggest challenge is therefore just to make the insights available for everyone, and so you don't miss out. And so there's not a team, for instance, branding that actually has a lot of questions about the user and their audience, and they miss out because the user research was done within the content or the marketing.
Yeah, so it's really a lot of moving parts then, and just the challenge of bringing all those teams together, sharing the insights across the whole company then.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, you have different channels like Slack, so you can communicate those reports. But you really have to keep in mind that the need for those insights within other teams doesn't always align with the moment the insight is there. So that's the reason why you should register your insights well and make it accessible for everybody, and not only as a report out in an email or in a Slack message, for instance.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that because, yeah, measuring CRO is often kind of viewed as a numbers game, but there's actually a whole other side to CRO that involves, leveraging more soft, more humanized data, as we mentioned before. And this data is great because it gives light to insights such as, consumer intent and behavior. How do you guys approach this type of data?
Yeah, so actually, we have different kind of tools we use. For instance, we use Mopinion for those insights, but also we have Airtable to have a complete overview to all the insights we have. And in my opinion, in the future, the numbers game actually. So the quantitative data in the CRO will be mostly automated. So that's what I mean with, for instance, insights getting from an experiment, or insights or reports from analytics, for instance. So this will decrease the amount of time that I, as a specialist, will need to spend on analyzing results or pinpointing pain points in the user journey. But of course, this will result in more time to improve the humanized part of optimization. So we can eventually, finally focus on the soft data and start building a more complete user overview based on psychology, based on qualitative user input, based on screen recordings, for instance. So that's the part that cannot really be automated yet.
Yeah, I suppose that's good news for you guys then, that it's all going to be automated, so you can really focus on the other side of CRO.
I really think so, because it takes out the human error part. But of course, that human error part is still in the soft data part. So you still have a kind of confirmation bias of the person that is looking into or searching for data and searching for insights in the soft data.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me kind of to my next question. So, you have this soft data that you're working on gathering, but how do you use this type of data alongside the hard data? So the website traffic, the new customers, visitor drop offs, and things like that.
Yeah, so actually, the best way is like a two-way stream, you know. So currently, I use soft data to prioritize what hard data is most important. So I can recognize what metrics do I need to measure, but also in reverse. So with soft data, you are able to understand your users, the way they talk, and and why. So you know what to ask and what to say to the user if you want to communicate or start quantitative research. So it's not only so why they abandoned the checkout. So it's not only when they abandoned the checkout, but it's also why they abandoned the checkout. So you have a more complete understanding of the underlying reason why users drop off in the checkout, for instance.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned about using it in reverse. So sometimes you use the soft data to understand the hard data then as well.
Yeah,
Is that
yes,
correct?
yeah. That is one of the most important reasons to always use your soft data. So it transforms what I've previously said is soft data transforms conversion optimization from actually just fixing a problem that's in the funnel, or fixing performances based on your user insight, into understanding the user and optimize the user experience in total.
Yeah, so it's really in depth. Interesting. All right. Well, now we're going to move on to the next segment of our podcast, and that is our social media moment. And during our social media moment, we like to read off an interesting tweet from another digital enterprise and just get your take on the matter. So, are you ready for it?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Social media moment.
Impact Data Solutions recently tweeted, "Qualitative data is just as important as quantitative data. It gives voice to your impact and allows you to align your goals with the needs of those you serve." So, my question for you is, would you agree with this statement? And if so, what are some of the most interesting insights that you've come across while using qualitative data?
Yeah. So I agree with this opinion. It is important to use your qualitative data, and yes, you can understand your user, but it's also very important to know what the user says, how the user communicates. It's also so very important to know how to approach your customer and not only improve your funnel. So and actually some of the insights we got from soft data is actually a few examples. So what we've done is we changed filters, we changed content, we changed the checkout based on for instance screen recordings. So it's very important to really deep dive into the soft data once you've found a certain drop off, for instance, in a checkout. So a few examples of what you can do with soft data is hard data are existing metrics, and soft data is based on metrics you do not measure yet. So, for instance, we did a usability session, and where we identified that users actually had a different desirability of searching for product. So we based our filters based on taste, but they were actually searching for a certain drink style. So that's a totally different approach, and that's how we adjusted our filters to also drink style. So it links closely to the user. So and we also changed the content based on user feedback. So user interviews resulted in stronger USPs for products, and not even product related, or not product function related. For instance, we discovered our home tabs called the sub. It's one of the biggest USPs is portability to take away to parties, for instance. Or we changed the checkout based on screen recordings. So as a Dutch specialist, my presumption was that the Belgium users had a 4-digit zip code. So if you do your research, you'll notice that most of the postal codes are actually 4 digits. But we noticed that Belgium users were also trying to type more than 4 characters, so 5. So that's what caused a dropout in the checkout of 50%.
Wow, something so small.
Yeah. So that's something we are of course gonna experiment or validate. But this is a really insightful example of soft data and something you cannot measure with your hard data.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So before we go, we always like to give our guests just a quick moment to share any last bit of advice that they might have for our listeners. So Tim, are there any takeaways you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Yes. So soft data and hard data actually it's a two-way stream. So hard data can be used to identify pain points, but to really understand the user and the reason, it's important to get the input directly from your users. So that actually means deep dive into your soft data. So, and the next thing as a CRO specialist, what I find very important is make those insights available for everybody within your business. So it will create more involvement and awareness amongst other teams and departments. And that way you can steer to a shared understanding of the user and reach your goals of your company.
Yeah, so basically don't keep the data to yourself, but really share it, and sharing is caring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great. All right, well, that's great advice. Tim, it's a short one today, but we want to thank you again for your time and for joining us today on the show. It was great to hear your insights.
Yes, no problem. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's it for today's podcast. Hopefully this has given all of our listeners a bit of insight into the world of CRO and how you can start humanizing your CRO efforts. Thanks for joining. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and we're looking forward to bringing you much more exciting content here on 360 Digital. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in for a brand new episode next month.